The frigid air had practically completely frozen his wet hair. Frostbite would soon set in. He could feel his ears start to crack. His nose practically lacked any sort of feeling, and his fingers and toes had felt like solid ice, and paradoxically, his body began to feel a bit warmer. He felt as his organs began to fail as a sharp pain pierced his kidneys. The end was near. But as cold as the mountains were, no bite of the winds nor onset of hypothermia could ever diminish the kindling rage he felt. The betrayal of his brethren had set a fire within him that he could practically feel the warmth of the fumes. But what would he do? What could he do? Even if he had the energy to get up and walk, his broken leg wouldn't suddenly heal. And he didn't know where he was, so he couldn't even crawl to a safe place. What had he done to deserve this? Or was it just for fun? Perhaps they were so caught up in their depths that they simply devised a method to get rid of him and claim his wealth. Plenty of people died trekking the Himalayas anyways. So it wouldn't be difficult to believe that he had just suffered the same fate. Simply got lost and died from the cold. And it wouldn't be difficult to find his body, just to confirm what was the exact cause of death. But one look would lead anyone to believe, beyond a reasonable doubt, that there was no foul play involved anyways. Perhaps those sadistic fiends found the thought of one dying ever so subtly and the callous wastes of these frigid mountains exhilarating. The ice pick had somehow completely immobilized his leg, and the water had ensured that his eyes would not be able to see properly if the ice sheets had finished developing. Why? Why? What was the purpose? What had he done? He had cared for his brothers when no others would, gave them food when they had none, shelter when they had nowhere to go. Scared off their debt collectors, he had helped them pick themselves back up. They had changed in status, but never in soul, had they? Deep down, they were still the same rotten, spoiled, miserable, pathetic, insufferable brats that had gambled everything away and had begged for their big brother to save them from the trenches of their despair. And he decided to have mercy for simply sharing blood. He had decided to save them from the filth of their actions, and now he was given death as recompense. Now he saw the value in letting the righteous hand of consequence play out its judgment. Now he saw how he should have just turned his back and let the wolves devour them, let the sharks rip them apart, and have any penny they could have squeezed out of them. And what would become of his children? His wife? He was foolish for having left them. But how could any see their imminent betrayal? Now his children would be forever torn apart from their father, and his wife widowed, and not even a body to bury. But the past is the past. No matter how much one wills it, nothing can be done to bend the boundaries of space in order to conform to what one wishes, and there's nothing he could do in order to change the future. He was done. His life concluded. Tired, lonely, cold, angry, afraid. He felt sleep coming in. Perhaps he could at the very least rest. And when he woke up, the pain would go away. Forever. What was that? Footsteps? Was it salvation? Or damnation? A climber or a bear? From the blizzard appeared a figure. He could make out the outlines, but somehow still couldn't decide whether it was a person or a bear standing up. He couldn't see its features, but could note the hair protruding from all places. Perhaps a very thick fur suit? But that was the most he could see. The figure before him spoke, confirming that it was human, although a very tall one, and it spoke with a voice that seemed almost non-human, vaguely Nepalese. He had learned how to speak the language before he had come, and so understood the figure when he spoke.
Brothers. Brother. They called you brother. But it was not true. They were not brother. Not truly. Blood is blood. Actions are actions. One, meaningless, without other. You know this now. I will give you a chance. A chance to see what your desire burns for. Are you willing to pay the price?
He sat there, staring at the man who stood in front of him. The longer he stared at him, the more its alien features became apparent. His arms were disproportionately long, and he was tall, very tall, almost giant, although he was hunched over, leaning on the tall cylindrical object reminiscent of wood. His hands and feet seemed almost bare, with the exception of the presence of some fur on the back of his hands. Yet, why would he wear such a thick furred suit, and yet not properly cover the most delicate extremities? On his fursuit, he could make out the suggestions of shapes painted in a carmine hue of unknown designs to him, despite the fact that the thickness of the snow and the blizzard should have made it impossible to see anything remotely like that. And for the split second that the wind had thinned out and the frost had waned from the air, he could see the suggestions of the outlines of the features of the man's face. The more he thought about it, the more simian it appeared. The voice boomed out once more.
Price. Are you willing to give a price?
He jumped. The voice seemed agitated, impatient. He wanted an answer, and he couldn't assume he would have long to give one. My company. Make it crumble, he offered.
Not enough,
said the voice.
Company. Means to an end. No value. Not in death.
My collection of books. Burn them all, he responded.
Prized collection. Appearance only. No value put in the words. Not enough. Not in death.
My wealth. Give it away. Take it all away. Just leave enough for my family to survive.
You rip. Take away. Wealth had value. No value now. Not in death. Not for you.
Not in death, he kept saying. Not in death. This thing wanted a price that would be valuable to him, even in death. Few things could compare, and he would never be willing to offer the life of those closest to him. But perhaps something else. And so he responded. The health of my child. Take that. Money will be able to cover the bills anyways.
No, it will not. Price is sufficient. Your desire burns.
Suddenly, you could hear the sound of two ATVs making their way through snow-laden ancient stones, and two men arguing. Voices that sounded remarkably familiar, yet as foreign and alien as they could be. One was frantically yelling at the other, criticizing them for being as heartless as he was, while the other retorted that he didn't douse their victim with water. Idiotic, reckless, that's all they were. What would happen when the world runs dry? They didn't have the least clue how to even liquidate assets, never mind run a business of any kind in order to perpetuate the wealth. He had heard as one of the men mentioned how what is done is done, and the only thing that they should focus on is their future. And it suddenly hit them. He had a wife and children. They had been devising this plan for the better part of a month, and they never took into consideration that they were not capable of inheriting his wealth. All because of that damned whore of a wife. His children were far too young anyways, capable of understanding the complexities of finance, and unlikely to inherit any sort of estates or assets. It will be sad when they lose both of their parents in such a short time span. But such is the nature of wealth. If his heart wasn't already pounding from the fear of coming death and the pyre set by betrayal, well, now there could be nothing more to intensify the dilations of his heart and the revelation he was given sight to. It is unfortunate that 3 brothers died while on the mountains of the Himalayas. One died peacefully, overlooking the vistas of curving and jagged black mountains, snow blanketing and falling in a slow and graceful pattern as the dawn painted the morning sky with vivid hues. And 2 died as their legs were being crushed under the weight of their ATVs, with the merciless air freezing their blood-filled lungs.